Hey, what's up, everybody? My name is Moss, and in this video, I want to talk about tech trends to look out for in 2024 and also beyond 2024. Some of these technologies are available today, but I think a lot of them are going to be available. They have like a multi-year roadmap where they're not going to see massive adoption this year or in the next like 2 years. Might be like 5 to 10 years. The first technology that I think that you should keep your eye on is decentralized compute and decentralized storage. Currently, we have cloud providers like AWS, GCP, and as of today, a large percentage of the internet is hosted through these services. And in the last couple of years, there's been a trend to move out of the cloud. And all of these companies who have spent, the last decade migrating their applications into the cloud are now trying to find ways to either set up some sort of hybrid environment or move entirely out of the cloud and back into on-premise data centers. And it doesn't take a lot of time to investigate why companies are moving out of the cloud. One of the biggest motivators is cost. Everyone knows that AWS and Azure and GCP cost quite a bit of money, and there's lots of programs and there's a lot of thought put into how do you optimize the cost of your resources on these cloud providers. So, given that cost is a major motivation for a lot of companies to move out of the cloud and back into their on-premise data centers, uh, you might ask, okay, well then why decentralize infrastructure? Why not just have on-premise infrastructure that is completely owned and controlled by the company? And I think I can answer this by looking at a couple of factors. If you review 2021 and 2022, when there was a chip shortage, the chip shortage drove prices very high for a lot of products, not just GPUs, but computers, even Raspberry Pis. It drove up the costs in the automotive industry as well, and so that leads to the question: if the demand for chips continue to increase or increase at a much faster rate in the near future, what would people, what would we turn to? I mean, would we just continue paying higher and higher prices for new GPUs? 2022 was kind of a preview into what would happen if the demand for chips outpaced the supply. Now, even though that the supply chain of chips has normalized, the demand has increased even more with the introduction of generative AI in 2023 through like ChatGPT. And so let me just tie this back into decentralized compute. Okay, so we don't have enough chips. So it doesn't matter that companies are moving to an on-prem model for their data centers and saving on costs. Now they want to participate in generative AI, and to do so, they need a lot of compute power. Meanwhile, millions of people around the world already have regular compute power that's sitting under their desk, like I have right now. So what I'm suggesting is that if there were any additional disruptions to the supply chain for chips, and if the demand continued to increase, the rate of demand continued to increase, which it looks like it is, with given the trajectory of generative AI and how many companies want to participate in it, then there's purely just not enough compute power. And if you look at like some of the interviews with Sam Altman, he's already acknowledged this. He's like, I don't know. He doesn't know the answer, right? And I think that the answer to, not enough compute is decentralized infrastructure, at least as a supplemental solution uh, to the supply constraints around chips. So essentially, with decentralized infrastructure, let's say you have a PC that you're not using all the time. It has a GPU, fairly nice GPU in the PC, and what you do is you download a program, and that program uh, connects your PC to a network of computers that join a marketplace where people who need compute power and companies that need compute power can then schedule jobs or tasks on your PC. And it could be ML, AI, regular, let's say like CI/CD, and you're incentivized by, getting payment, right? However, that might be in current projects that are implementing decentralized infrastructure. A lot of them are doing it via the blockchain, and they have cryptocurrency, some sort of cryptocurrency established. But technically, it could be a fiat currency, like you get paid in US dollars to allow someone to use your compute resources on your computer. So I think that given the current demand and the trajectory of future demands for compute power and storage, that companies really won't have a choice. They will have to seek out novel ways to acquire compute power, especially if there was some sort of disruption in the supply chain, which, given geopolitical risks, I think that that could be, personally, I think that is a reasonable, probability that there could be a disruption in the supply chain of chips again in the near future. I think this model of decentralized compute and decentralized infrastructure will have kind of like a timeline of maybe 5 to 10 years for it to really catch on. Personally, I don't think, I think the technology is still very nascent and hasn't matured yet to allow companies and corporations to adopt it. But when it is adopted, I think that it will be a very seamless process for you to participate in the network and benefit from offering up your compute resources. I think it'll be as simple as, like, for instance, if you're, watching Netflix on your device, Netflix might pop up with a dialog box that says, "Hey, can we use, when your computer is idle, can we use your computer's resources for a 10% discount or 20% discount on your subscription to Netflix?" I think you'll see things like that implemented in the future. Now, the other technology that I also think has kind of maybe a 5 to 10 year roadmap or timeline for adoption is Web3 and Web3 technologies. It's heavily related to decentralized infrastructure, decentralized compute, but there are some other aspects of Web3 that I think are going to be very important in the future. And specifically, I think that the biggest value proposition to someone like you and me, for Web3, for using or participating in Web3, is that we have full control over our data and our privacy. That's what Web3 gives us. And when you look at, like, well, when the internet first started, and I've said this in another video, but if you look at when you first had like MySpace and stuff like that, you could create an account using a username and password, right? That was it. You didn't need to enter an email address. You didn't need to enter your full name, your ID, your date of birth, none of that, right? They didn't have any of your actual data except a username and password. That was Web 1. And then all of these companies like Google and Facebook, and they all came along. They were like, "Oh, wait a minute. We can turn around. We can take as much data as we want from you. We can learn all of these, demographics, all of this data, so that we can then advertise products to you, and we can make money off of that." That became their business model, and they've profited off of that business model for, over like 2 decades now. And what's terrible, and you're seeing this frequently now, are all of these cyber attacks happening on these companies, and they go, "Oh, sorry, we lost all of your," even with, medical companies, right? Sorry, we lost all of your medical data, or, your medical data was exposed. It's now on the dark web. Sorry about that. Now, with Web3, I think the core philosophy behind Web3 is that you have full control over your data. The data is available in a decentralized manner, right? Your data is spread across people that are participating in the network that are willing to store the data on their own machine, and it's in an encrypted format, right? So the data is safe, it's decentralized, no one entity controls it, right? Which is the other thing. If Google, suddenly doesn't like you, it can they can, delete your Google account. Can you imagine? I mean, I think for most people, right, they use Google and they use their Google email in order to create and sign into accounts on other services. Can you imagine if Google just decided to ban you and ban your account? Right? I mean, how would you get back any of your accounts uh, for other services? Right? They have so much power over your life that you don't realize. And I've never heard of anyone getting, their Google account banned, or maybe your account, maybe Google is compromised and your account gets deleted by accident and all the backups and all that other stuff. And we put so much trust into these centralized providers. And I think that not now, most people don't see that it's a problem now. But I think over the next 5 to 10 years, what you'll see is a paradigm shift moving back to kind of a Web 1 world where companies do not know any data about you except the data that you are willing to share. And you might get paid to share that data, right? You're getting some benefit out of sharing your data. So a concrete example of what your experience might look like in Web3 is an identity that is decentralized. So it's an identity that's not associated with your Google account, your Facebook account, no centralized, Web 2 service that you're familiar with. Instead, it's a decentralized ID that is distributed across, multiple computers, and no one entity could delete your ID from the network. And your decentralized identity could have credentials associated with it. So, for instance, you could have, a credential that's like a government issued ID, a driver's license that's associated with a decentralized ID, or some other piece of data like how old you are, other what they call verifiable credentials that are associated with your ID that allow you to do things. And the decentralized ID would allow you to log into all of the services that you want to use online, and also enable you to use services offline as well in the real world. And there's no risk to you of losing that identity, right? There's a risk that you might lose your Gmail account or your Google account or your Facebook account. You might get banned from Instagram or TikTok or something like that, right? When you're banned from those platforms, there's no recourse. And that might be your identity. Our identities online are these fragmented services, essentially. And you should have one unified identity when you're online, and you shouldn't have to give up your information to have that identity. Decentralized identities should and will feel like using some of those older services from the early 2000s, like MySpace and similar ones, where all you had to do was enter a username and password in order to create an account. Another technology that is heavily related to decentralized identities and kind of underpins, the implementation of decentralized IDs is zero knowledge proofs. And what is a zero knowledge proof? Well, let's take an example. Imagine you're going to a gas station to buy alcohol, and the gas clerk asks for your ID to check whether or not you're of drinking age. But if it were possible, it would be great to prove that you are of drinking age without actually revealing your real birth date or your real age. So imagine that you had some sort of government official like standing next to you, and the gas clerk asks the government official who they trust, right? It's a trusted party. They say, "Is this person over, 21 years old?" And the government official who knows your real age says yes. In doing so, they didn't reveal your actual age or your birth date or any of the other information that's listed on your driver's license, like your address and other details about yourself. Now, replace that government official with what's known as a zero knowledge proof. And essentially, it's just a cryptographic signature that's signed by what I think is like a public key issued by, an official government, right? Or a trusted third party. And when that proof is presented to a merchant, such as, a gas clerk, the gas clerk can verify the signature of the public, they can verify the signature of the public key. So it's using well defined cryptographic techniques that you might see for SSL certificates and stuff like that. So cryptographic proof is essentially an encrypted signature issued by a trusted third party that a verifier can query against and say, is this person a licensed pilot? And that proof that is signed by the trusted third party, like the FAA or something, I don't know who issues pilots licenses, will have that signature, and it will return like a yes or no. It won't return, the expiration date. It'll just return that yes, they have an active license, right? It's not going to reveal any additional information, and it shouldn't. There are multiple applications of zero knowledge proofs, but With respect to how they integrate with decentralized identities, and just like everyday interactions that we have, how important they will become, it's definitely a technology that you should keep an eye on. And I think that it does have, a road, maybe let's say like a roadmap of 5 to 10 years. I don't know how long it'll take to adopt, but it's something that's going to become much more important and a regular part of our lives in the future. Now, related to like, zero knowledge proofs and identity, imagine that when you're joining a company, and we live in a world where I think there is a fairly large percentage of people that are working remotely where they almost never, meet their coworkers in person, or they might very infrequently meet with their coworkers in person. And imagine that you join a company and you don't have to reveal your real name. All the company is concerned about is that you have that, let's say that you're a US citizen, right? They don't need to know your real name. What they care about is that you are a US citizen. They can issue you a W-2 at the end of the year. They care about that you have a social security number. They don't care what the social security number is. So imagine, facilitated by zero knowledge proofs, you can apply to a company, you can be hired on with a company, and they would never know your name or any of the like any data about yourself that you don't want to reveal, including like your social security number, where you live. They don't even have to like know where you live in order to send like documents and stuff like that. Zero knowledge proofs enables so many new interactions. But also, if you look at some of the technologies that are becoming more mainstream, like, virtual reality, generative AI, you could essentially have, if you're like a remote worker, you could essentially have like a digital avatar that people would see on, video calls and stuff like that. They would never know what you look like or what you sound like. They wouldn't know your real name or anything like that. I, I I know that's not like something everybody wants, but I think that is an extremely cool capability to have. And I think these concepts are not novel. We already have these kinds of uh, com- concepts implemented in simpler ways, like on Discord, for instance. You can have different profiles for different Discord servers and stuff like that that allow you to customize kind of your persona on a per server basis, right? We have these circles in real life and in our digital lives where we're, different people, we're different aliases based on who we're with. And you already see this being used with like some Twitch streamers and streamers on other platforms where nobody even knows what they look or sound like. They're just like, some sort of anime virtual avatar uh, in their Twitch streams, and they don't have any video cam of themselves. I think there's a fair number of people that would definitely like to utilize decentralized IDs, zero knowledge proofs, in a way that helps protect their identity and helps them be who they want to be when they're, streaming on a platform like Twitch, or when they're at work or with their friends. Now, the last two technologies that I want to mention are already among us. They're walking among us, and that's generative AI, which I've already kind of mentioned with decentralized infrastructure, and then cryptocurrencies. Generative AI, I don't need to like explain it or go into great detail, but the applications of generative AI are going to be uh, pretty wide, and we're already seeing some novel use cases like in robotics and stuff like that, which I think are pretty amazing. I'm not going to go into great detail with generative AI because everybody's been talking about it already. And same for crypto. I don't want to go into too much detail about crypto. It is a technology that's here to stay, and I think it's going to be used as a new form of currency. I will say, like, I found it frustrating listening to some of the big politicians and bankers, specifically Jamie Dimon, talk about crypto and Bitcoin. When I hear them talk about crypto, it takes like 5 seconds to realize that they have really no idea how it works. There was some interview with Jamie Dimon, I think earlier in the year, where they asked him like what his thoughts on Bitcoin were, And he said that he wasn't convinced that like the founder of Bitcoin wasn't going to just show up out of nowhere one day and then delete everyone's Bitcoin. And I was like, the fact that you think that that's a possibility, you know, that that could happen, just shows like how much you don't understand about how the technology works, and that it's an open source technology, and that by this time, like it's just not possible, right? It doesn't make sense. And the other thing that frustrates me about when people talk about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is that they talk about them like they're an investment, and their intention for, you know, buying cryptocurrency is that hopefully at some point I can I can put in $100 of Bitcoin and pull out $1,000, you know, sell the Bitcoin and pull out $1,000, right? Their mindset is that they want dollars. But if you believe in cryptocurrency, you don't want dollars, right? You want the cryptocurrency because long term that's what will likely have, you know, will keep its value. And I've been hearing people talk about, you know, Bitcoin could be $1 million. Bitcoin might hit $1 million. And I actually think that's possible, but not in the way that people are discussing it. Change the way you think about it a little bit and imagine that Bitcoin is $1 million. It's not $1 million because the value of Bitcoin has gone up so much that it's worth $1 million. Imagine that Bitcoin is worth $1 million and a loaf of bread at the supermarket is $500. That's why I think Bitcoin could be worth $1 million. And when it is worth $1 million, you're not going to want dollars. What you'll want is Bitcoin. No one will, if it's worth $1 million, no one will want dollars. They'll only want Bitcoin. They'll only want the cryptocurrency because that's how it's supposed to be used, as a currency, right? To transfer value and a store of value. It's not meant as some investment asset. Change your mindset about when you're thinking about cryptocurrency to just using it as a transfer of value and a store of value. When I hear big bankers talk about cryptocurrency, number one, I know that they don't understand it, but number two, I can tell that they're scared of it because it threatens their business model. Fundamentally, it I mean it obliterates, I think, the banking system's business model. For a lot of transactions, there's no need for a middleman. Uh, you know, when you have like smart contracts facilitating a transaction or something like a loan, um, then there isn't really a need to have a middleman when you have like a trusted automated third party. I think that the role of banks becomes much smaller with a decentralized cryptocurrency. And I think that other people are threatened by cryptocurrency as well. So that's kind of the rant that I have, but also, you know, my outlook for tech trends to look out for in 2024 and over the next few years that I think are going to become very important in our daily lives. If you'd like me to make a video that's dedicated to one of those topics, like crypto or decentralized infrastructure, let me know in the comments, and I'll try and make a video specifically for that topic. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please consider throwing a like on the video and subscribing to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching.